It is. Yeah, I don't know anything about racing. This is true. You're right. You're in the wrong show.
Yeah.
You're watching the wrong show if you want to hear like super engineer stuff.
Okay. Hello and welcome back to Hitting the Apex, joined by Evan. Evan, McLaren won too. Who would have thought?
Well, obviously you did from your predictions from last
That's
week.
true. That's true. Why you have to like bring up old stuff, even though it's the first thing in the running order? Actually, I had the McLaren one too. You did not. You had the winner, but you didn't know the one too.
Listen, you had the McLaren 1, 2, and a Mercedes in the top three,
I know.
and Aston a double points for
Yeah, I
Aston
did. I
Martin.
did get the
Man,
Austin Martin double points. That I got.
if you would have picked your favorite Mercedes driver instead of Kimi, you would have nailed it.
What's up, Brandon? Yeah, no, I mean
What's
we
up, Brandon?
danced around it. So you had Lando winning, which is correct. Max second, and we're gonna talk kind of after we review this race. We're gonna talk about what's going on with the Red Bull. And then Charles third, which we're gonna talk as part of the race review. That Odyssey, and then you had Oscar out of the top seven as a surprise. So you were very nearly. You almost got the 1-3 there. Obviously, Leclerc had an issue. Leclerc had an issue on that last stint, which again we're going to talk about. I had Oscar winning, Lando second. That's wrong order. Kimi third, wasn't even close. Like you said, George Russell overtook Leclerc for that in the closing stages. I did nail the surprise, which is the double points for Austin Martin.
That was big. That was big
Yeah,
for them. They really did look good overall. The two of them, up there. Even Stroll, you got to give him his props where props are due, at least for this week.
yeah, and I'd say, and yeah, we're going to talk about some of Hamilton's comments as well as he caused quite the
Yeah.
controversy, Morgan. But one of the interesting things is that both the Austin Martin drivers talked about this, but a lot of the midfield back cars talked about how just like race to race, they get no consistency, and I think we've seen that where all of a sudden, for a while it was like Williams consistently, and then they drop back, and Austin Martin last week no points, this week double points. I mean, they were the worst car in Belgium, and then to turn around and put two cars in the points, and the Ocon was talking about the Haas, same thing. Like 1 week we're on the pace, next week we're off of it. It doesn't make sense. Like I don't recall. Maybe you're a little bit better historian of F1 than I am. I don't recall though. This late in the cycle of a car, with so many teams still struggling to kind of get grips on the design and kind of all over them, because this car is dead after this year. Like this generation's done. Like next year's a new design. Usually, at this point, they all kind of know their car. We know the pecking order, and other than the McLarens being way ahead of everyone else, like everything else is just a jumble still.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even so much say it's that. I think what's happening is that these cars have leaned so far into their own concepts of how to run these cars because of the fact that they've ran them for so long now that you're really starting to see it's no longer that they're all kind of on the same level and it's all an even playing field wherever it may be, with the cars, with them having them be so new. Now that they're later on in the life cycle of this generation of cars, it's more like these cars are good at these certain tracks. These cars work well in this certain set of circumstances, and that's why you'll see these cars peak and valley so far from like you just said, the Aston Martins being so bad in Belgium, and then you go to a track like this and they run so well. I don't remember exactly where both of those Astons were in Monaco, but you got to remember, like, this is a track that's very high downforce, in Hungary. that it's they consider it the Monaco without walls and stuff like that. So maybe this car is just suit or that car is just suited more for that type of track and that style of racing, other than the more wide open style that you see in Belgium.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you recall, Monaco was a farce this year because of
Yeah,
the
the
moving
having
chicane
to use.
strategies that were deployed across up and down the field. Where if you ended up behind a car, you were basically stuck, and they would block you, so their teammate could open a pit gap, and pit into it, and then
Yeah,
yeah, the too bad Monaco doesn't have overtaking like Hungary does, because then it might actually be interesting. Instead of yeah, we saw a farcical race. It's hard to tell who was fast at Monaco just because if you pit, then you're stuck. Is basically what
yeah,
happened. And there were cars blocking for their teammates
yeah,
open gaps up to do two pit stops in a window, and then just okay, we're compliant with the regulations, and now no one can pass anyway, so it doesn't matter if the tires wear out. It was silly. A
yeah,
silly race. Now that's to this race. This race was not silly. So I guess a little bit of a recap. Leclerc put it on pole. Piastri was second, Norris third, Russell fourth, Alonso fifth in qualifying. Um, Leclerc got off to a really good start. I thought Norris did as well. Piastri kind of squeezed him off the racing line, as he should. He's trying to win a championship. And both Russell and Alonso swept around the outside and pounced on that. So Norris dropped back to fifth. Leclerc controlled the race through the first pit stop, through to the second pit stop, and then the tires fell off. In the interim, Lando got around Alonso, but luckily for him, could not get around George Russell, who then,
yeah,
and then they all went for undercuts. And at that point, Lando was like, I'm stuck in fourth, or I'm stuck in fourth. So might as well hang it out there. And it turned out that his one stop worked, and he won the race. He pitted out of the lead, and then got to the end and held the lead when Oscar, George, and Charles, who were in front of him, pitted in behind him. So Lando with a control drive for him, especially like just under control, maintain the tires, wins the race. Piastri caught him but couldn't pass him. And then again, big gap back to George Russell, even a bigger gap back to Leclerc by the end of it. That last stint really is where you saw the McLaren, flex its muscles, because even Norris was on very old tires, and Piastri was able to catch him, but I mean, 21 seconds on George Russell, 42 on Leclerc is a pretty. This is on very old tires, and I think if you run the computer simulations, the two stop was still optimal. The track position just won out over that. So
yeah.
for him to be that far ahead with a bad strategy, a suboptimal strategy, is just. I mean, you're seeing the McLaren just that McLaren in clean air is a different beast.
Yeah, and on top of that, like you mentioned, it is really tough to pass there. We saw them almost come to catastrophe on that second to last lap. With Oscar pretty much sliding a nose underneath, Lando Norris's
Yeah,
rear bumper or the rear light of that, of his car. So that really could have ended both of their days right there at the very end of the race, which would have been, you know, it would have been a complete disaster for everybody. But you can't fault them for going for the win. So I would think that this is a similar situation to what we've seen happen in the past. But usually it's Lando that's in the chasing position and Oscar that's up front. This time they made the right decision. You could tell that these two sides of the McLaren garage really are they're not playing together. They're not working together, and they're letting these two drivers go out there and race with different strategies, with different setups. I guess the way that they're running these cars, they're running them as two completely separate entities, and I think it's good. I think
it's definitely good. Yeah.
it's refreshing to see that not every team is playing the team game. I think last year, you would have heard more of Oscar complaining on the radio saying, "Hey, I qualified ahead of him. He should let me get past him. I've been ahead of him the whole race just because you guys want to go on a different strategy." But this year they're not saying that. They're coming out there. They're fighting each other. They're going at it. And other than the one time in in Canada, where Lando just made a bonehead move. They've really been kind of good with each other and raced each other pretty, solidly. This was one of those times that it got really close, and we all kind of sat there and I think once we saw those tires lock up, I mean, I don't know how you felt, but my
Yeah,
heart
no,
dropped to
I
the
thought it was
floor.
gonna go. I thought they were both gonna get out that time.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be a rear tire blowout for Lando and a whole front wing chopped off for Oscar,
Yeah,
and we would have seen George
broken
Russell come out with the
suspension.
win.
Yeah,
Yeah,
broken suspensions. All the worst it looked like. I will say, um, obviously in Canada, Lando, took himself out and was and Oscar was fortunate that he didn't sustain any damage that
yeah,
caused him to DNF. So that's the only time they've collided. But I thought this was a little bit of like you said, there was a role reversal where it was Oscar chasing down Lando because generally speaking, what we've seen is Lando has been faster but chaotic, and Oscar's just
yeah,
been smooth, so he's maintained. This was a role reversal. Lando backed out in the first turn. Everyone's like, why'd he brake so early? Because his teammate was there and he wasn't going to hit him. Because,
yeah,
I feel like if Oscar had done that with another driver who's not his teammate, they wouldn't have backed out like that. They would have sent it up the inside and basically said, you're chopping across. Well, you're going to have to wipe me out. But Lando braked and backed out of it to avoid that collision. It cost him a couple of spots. And then yeah, like you said, it was more luck than anything else that Oscar didn't cause a huge collision there at the end. Because
it
again,
was.
it's not his normal position to be. He has shown to be a consistently very good and steady driver. Not, he's not shown himself to be like a Senna, a Hamilton, a Max that is that is, you know, if there's a gap, I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah,
And he's winning, and his approach is why he's winning the championship
yeah,
because he's like, you know what, second place is fine, backs out of it, collects the points. That's why he's where he is, and Lando not taking that attitude is why he's had more poor finishes and more, that one DNF on a crash, but where he's more active out there. And so, Oscar's slow and steady winning the race is why he's, with 10 races left, he's in first for a reason.
yeah,
But that his strong suit is not. You have one lap to make this overtake happen. I'm gonna send it up the inside. And that's something Hamilton, Max, you know, I've mentioned Senna, Schumacher. They would do that. They're like, I'm going up the inside, and I'm gonna keep the car under control, and I'm getting through there somehow. And in this case, he tried to be that guy. That's not him. He should have. He's the control driver, and I think he's very lucky that there was not a double DNF there.
yeah. I mean, we've seen this before, and we've seen this with this team before. I mean, the best comparison I've seen anybody make to Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri as teammates is Senna and Prost. Alan Prost was that calm, cool, collected, calculated driver that hit his marks. He came out of that school of what's his name, Nicky Lauda school of driving, where it's like I'm only going to take 80% I'll only allow 85% risk, while driving a Formula One car, but never a percentage point more. It's that same school of thought where you have some of these drivers are that calm, cool, collected, calculated drivers, and some drivers are chargers. And Lando is that traditional charger, and Oscar is that traditional calm, cool, collected driver. And it's good to have those two types of drivers on the same team because you get to see the difference between them in the same machinery. When we saw Senna and Prost fight with each other, I mean they went at it. They went at it just as much as, if not more than what we see here. It's like you love seeing situations like this compared to, let's go back to the Rubens Barrichello and Michael Schumacher days, or the Bottas and Hamilton days, where it's a clear cut number one, a clear cut number two. They're both good drivers that are coming first and second in almost every single race, but there's a clear cut one and a clear cut two. I'm enjoying this. It's making for a great championship this year. because at least they have the same, machinery. It's not like one guy is out there dominating every single race like we saw Max do the past few years. So, it's something that is good for the sport. It's good for the publicity of the sport in general, and you never know what's going to happen every single week. Last year I think it was, we sat here and almost every single one of our predictions we said Max is going to win, and I think we got 85% of that right, 90% of that right.
But Checo was not pushing him, so
exactly. So it's like it's one of those things that we've been off on our predictions a lot more this year, but that's because it has been more chaotic, and that's a great thing for Formula One.
Yeah, and I think to your point, they're very different drivers, but they're kind of even. Yeah. So some of the ones you mentioned, part of it's attitude, part of it's like, I mean, let's be real, Barrichello was not beating Schumacher consistently.
No, Barrichello was a good driver.
He was a good driver, but we're talking Schumacher. I think it's the same thing. Like Bottas was very good, but over the course of 20 races, he's just not going to compete with Hamilton. And I think, in this case, actually, yeah, they can. They can compete with each other, and I think it's made for interesting races. I think their different styles have as well, because they're not. If they were similar drivers, it might get processional, but they're both very different in how they handle the car, their demeanor, and I think that's made, like you said, for a really enjoyable battle here. And also, as you mentioned earlier, I'm just repeating stuff you've said, but like as McLaren has almost put a wall in the garage and said, like, you guys go handle this independently. We're not getting involved. You're basically too many teams here. And you can hear them on the radio. This is what we need to do to undercut Oscar. This is what, this is your delta to Lando. And so, like, as if it's a different team. And again, I think it's fortunate when we look at the stands, you'll see that they have the luxury of doing that. The constructors is way over. So yeah. I think and one of these two guys is going to win the driver. So it is, they're kind of like no harm, no foul here. They don't have to kind of get involved and put a thumb on the scale and do anything to preserve any kind of result, because they're going to finish 1 and 2 in the championship in some order, and they're going to win the constructors going away. So with that already in your back pocket, it's very easy to say, hey, if you're free to race, just don't wipe each other out, but have at it. Be fair, but firm. We don't care. No teamwork. It's easy to do that when, I mean, let's be real. If they had crashed into each other, their nearest championship rival would have been promoted from 9th to 7th. They would be up 200 plus points in the constructors. It would not have affected any of their disposition overall. It would have hurt Lando a lot because he made up some ground. But from a team standpoint, you're still going to finish 1-2 in the drivers, and you're still winning the constructors. And that gives them the freedom to say, yeah, you can attack each other. And I think the more bigger worry with stuff like that is, let's say Oscar had wiped them both out or just wiped Lando out. That causes tension in the garage then, especially if somehow he had taken Lando out and continued on and won the race. It would have been, that would have ended the championship pretty much. I mean, that would have put another 25 onto his 16-point lead and put him up to 41 points. It would have been hard for Lando. So that was, that flashed across. So that would have been tough to swallow for all of them. So luckily they avoided that. What else? Well, obviously we talked a lot about the McLarens. I will say the last thing just on the McLarens is, as we mentioned, the one stop was suboptimal. I do wonder if we'll see them in a case where it's not like that big of a difference, if we see them doing more of that with their second car. One, to try and offset something with the lead car, because we've seen, this isn't the first time we've seen, we've talked about the McLaren DRS itself is actually not good comparatively. Like Red Bull really nailed their DRS. That's why you see Max sweep past people pretty easily. The McLaren's not. It's not that they don't get the same boost that a lot of the other teams do. Of course, their overall car is way better. They have trouble overtaking each other because of that. And so, splitting the strategy for the second driver might make sense. And then also, we've seen what the McLaren's do in clean air. So, what Norris inadvertently got was just a lot of laps in clean air while Oscar was sitting behind Leclerc. And so their car is so much faster that, like, it feels like if they just aren't on the same strategy as everyone else and don't get stuck behind them, they'll finish ahead of them. Because I think that, again, overtaking is actually a challenge in this car because it's not as great on the DRS, and that's probably the weakness of the car. And you get a car like if the Mercedes, the Red Bull, the Ferrari is running a little bit lower downforce, it's really hard for them to stick those passes. We saw that until Leclerc, whatever happened to his car, Piastri sat behind him for what, 50 laps? And then
Something like
Norris
that.
couldn't get around George Russell. He sat behind him for that whole first stint until he pit. So that and you look how much faster the cars actually are than those cars, but they still couldn't do it. So I
Yeah.
think if there's a weakness in the car, it's that it's much slower in traffic than it is in clean air, and it's not great at overtaking. And by just mixing the strategy up a little, you get into that clean air. You don't actually have to do the overtake on track like that, and the car in a straight shot is just way better.
Yeah, I think that that also has to do with the track as well, especially this week, in Hungary at Budapest or there, because unless your name was Max Verstappen, you weren't passing anywhere but turn one. Like, yeah, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about the rest of it, but man, those some of those passes Max was making, in that race on Sunday were just they were out there. They were
Yeah,
crazy, and so unless you're doing that where you're basically saying F it, I'm just gonna go as hard as I can and try to get past as many people as possible and just you know destroy everybody. You're only really trying to turn or go into turn one, and you're right. The DRS isn't as strong as years past for other cars and for other teams, but I think that again that has a lot to do with a track specific situations. B, the fact that they're going up against the same car. I mean, you don't have a DRS advantage on a car that has the exact same aerodynamic profile as your car. Even if you have DRS and they don't have DRS, it still it mitigates it. It's like what we saw Max destroying people with DRS before. It was everybody else but his teammates, because his
yeah,
teammates were usually pretty far back. So he had an advantage over everybody else because the car had an advantage over everybody else. Now we're seeing two cars go up against each other that are the same have the same aerodynamic profile, and they're more evenly matched. And again, going back to like what I was saying about track specific, one of the main things about Hungary, about Budapest, is you have that long right hander right before the start finish line that these cars really do slow down a lot to go around. I mean, I think when we did the track view last week, you saw that the car was getting down to third, fourth gear before
yeah.
they were really launched it going down that start finish line. And if you get that little head start coming out of that last corner, you can make up 6/10, 7/10 of a second. That's not enough room for those cars to lunge going into turn one. You really got to come out of that corner 3/10 back, 2/10 back, and then you'll be able to make a good solid pass. So whether it's the DRS not being super effective or like we were saying, the track specific thing, it is more difficult to pass in these cars. I think that you're 100% correct about that.
Yeah, and to your point, coming off that last corner because of and there was a and this is less of a case with these cars than the old design of cars, but it's still the case that the wake from the leading car affects you, and it's so hard to stay right on the back of it, going through that turn. So then that gap just slips away. Like you said, it's hard to stay with the lead car because they create wake that makes it difficult to sit on their gearbox through that last slow corner. And then, like you said, that gap that they open up a lot of times is enough. The other thing, and you mentioned this track specific, the one and two stops were close enough
Yeah.
where you can play games with it. A lot of these tracks, it's just not even. There's just no way you're making that time back up, and so, if you and actually coming on to Max, you can see the perils of pitting too early. He got stuck
Oh
in
yeah.
try. You mentioned all those overtakes he made. He was looking great through the field, and then they pit him too early. He got stuck in traffic, and ended up in ninth.
Yeah.
So yeah. So okay. So we've talked a lot about the McLarens. What else stood out for you this race?
Well, I mean, like we were just talking about, those overtakes that Max was doing. I mean, some of them were just downright reckless. I mean, you saw the move he made on Hamilton going into turn four. I mean, those cars are doing about 160 miles per hour going into that turn, and he basically just sent it right up the inside of him and said, "I'm sorry, goodbye, yeah, see you later. If we crash, we crash. I don't care." And you saw Hamilton back out and really lose a lot of momentum there, and got himself into where he was out of the top 10 by the time the race finished, but you know, besides for him, there was a lot of interesting things that I thought was happening throughout the entirety of the race. Case in point, man, Gabriel Bortoleto. I mean, applause to him. I think we got a topic coming up where we're going to talk about some rookies later on in the show.
Yep.
But I mean, applause to him, man. He looked great. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Fernando Alonso is his mentor. He is his kind of his guy up there, and I think that you really see him kind of push Gabriel Bortoleto, ahead. You see him kind of, hey, come on, let's go. Maybe he backs off a little bit to give him a little bit of DRS or whatever it may be, just to kind of make him, keep up with him or whatever it may be. But man, he impressed me overall. Between where he was in qualifying to getting it into Q3, and then during the race being up there and really battling with Lance and Fernando and Liam and even at some points with Max, because Max got up there around that position during the race, so he did look really good, and I was really impressed with him. And then, man, did you see what happened to Hajar with his hand?
I saw him mention it. I did not see what actually happened.
So the replay, there was somebody in front of him. I don't remember who it was, but they went off the track. I think it was at turn 9, if I'm not mistaken. It was that fast right-hander right before the slow section at the very end, and he got all the way out on the edge of the track. His hand was up on the steering wheel, and all the rocks got splashed onto his car and smacked him in the hand. Man, you saw as he had his hand on the wheel. I mean, these guys are grabbing onto these wheels like there's no tomorrow because of the forces. You see him literally take his hand off the wheel and go, "Oh my god," because of how hard those rocks hit him in the hand. I can't imagine being him waking up, Monday morning and I'm sure his hands were all bruised and battered up from that. But I mean, that's something that's incredible. I mean, we always like to say, we want to see grass and gravel and stuff like that. We don't want to just see a whole bunch of tarmac because then these guys just push it a little bit too far. The gravel will give it a little bit of a consequence. If these cars if they try to go a little bit too far off the track. But man, that could have been something really bad for him. Imagine one of those rocks was big enough, would have shattered his glass, on the polycarbonate on his, on his visor, or if it would have broken one of his fingers or something like that. I mean, man, I haven't seen anything like that in a long time.
Yeah, and he's again, like you said, there's probably lingering effects. Luckily, it's summer break, so he has time to
Oh yeah,
heal up there. And because we've certainly seen drivers miss a race or two with hand injuries on
oh yeah.
similar instances in the past. But he's fortunate he's able to rest up now for basically a month and come back hopefully fully healed. Because immediately he's like, I can't drive really, and he still finished 11th. It was a great drive, all
Yeah,
things considered, but
exactly.
still finished 11th. Yeah, I think we taught the Austin Martins really stood out too to me. And I mean, we got to look at 8 and 9 here and just marvel at Liam Lawson's year.
Yeah,
Was in the Red Bull, couldn't score a point, fired from Red Bull, back down to Racing Bulls, goes into summer break, finishing ahead of both Red Bulls and the
yeah.
lead car for that outfit. Yeah, interesting.
It's incredible.
Interesting times. That Red Bull, we're going to talk about that in a bit, is not looking up to speed. So who was your driver of the day?
Driver of the day overall for me was you got to go with Lando. I mean,
Yep.
to me, and I'm not just saying it because he's my favorite driver. I'm not just saying it because he won the race. The way that he handled himself during that race, I think was very mature. It was very calculated. It was very, we just got done talking about how he's the pusher. He's he's the charger. But really, he came into this race. He was calm on the radio during the entire thing. It was, hey, I think we're gonna do this. Okay, no problem. Let's do it. It's, hey, we're going with this strategy. Sounds good. Let's do it. You heard Oscar on the radio a couple times get in there and kind of be a little frustrated. Oh, I don't think that this is going to work. Oh, we should have probably done this. Or, oh, there was a couple times there. But Lando, number one for me, I thought, he did great. Other than that, I mean, I already talked about Bortoletto, how he had a strong race overall. I feel real bad for Leclerc and Lewis. We'll get into that in a second. When you say disappointments, but I just want to throw out. I feel bad for them in this situation.
Yeah, I would say I would also, in addition to everyone we've mentioned, I would throw George Russell in there. I think he had another controlled race. It's clear there's something, and we talked about this a little bit. Was this before the show? I think this was before the show. We're going to talk about this in a minute, but there's something going on in that team right now that's not comfortable for anyone there. And he put that aside, drove a good race, and I thought, obviously Leclerc had issues with his car that impacted him, but 3 or 4 years ago, immature George Russell would not have calmed down, stayed on his gearbox, and made the overtake on the next lap. It would have ruined his race. He would have done something stupid. And by the way, Leclerc moved on him again, and he kept his head and got the overtake done. That's him. And we talked about this at the beginning of the year, how without Hamilton there, he's really grown into that I'm the number one driver and that maturity. I thought that was on exhibit here. Lando's my driver of the day, I think. Executing that one stop, again, it was a sub-optimal strategy, beating his teammate. As you said, keeping the tires alive. I think people don't realize one mistake, one lockup, that strategy's dead. Those tires are on edge. If you lock up 2 laps into the stint on the hards, you're game over. You're driving it for the rest of the race with the tire messed up. And, that's very uncharacteristic for him to be that smooth and clean, and he was. He's my driver of the day, but, I thought George Russell really kept his head there at the end when it really could have been a disaster.
How about disappointment of the day for you? What's your disappointment of the day?
For the weekend, man, it's got to be Hamilton. And we're gonna talk. I guess we can also throw whatever the hell happened with Leclerc there. Leclerc's last 20 laps were very disappointing too. But I just one thing with Hamilton is he's obviously, if not the greatest driver ever, he's in the conversation, right? And he's always had supreme confidence, even when the car's not there. I mean, you'll remember this after he won his first title with McLaren the next year. The car that was your Braun one. Car was a disaster. And, by the end of the year, they were winning races again, and he stuck with it. And the whole season, he was like, we're going to get this right. And to see him, after qualifying and after the race being like that, they should fire me.
Yeah.
Is basically what he said. I mean, to me, that was a disappointment, but also just sad. Sad to see, the great champion like that. And obviously, after qualifying, it says, it's not the car. The team is not a problem. The car's on pole. There's something wrong with the driver. We should change the number 2 driver or whatever he said. It's just to see him, who's the almost insanely optimistic at all times, to see him like that, disappointment's not even a strong enough word for that.
I mean, let's go tinfoil hat here. We're going to summer break. We know Lewis Hamilton doesn't need Formula One anymore. Do you see a possibility of him just saying, hey guys, I'm done. I'm sorry, it didn't work out. This wasn't good. We tried to make it work. I just had one of the worst weekends of my entire career. That I just am not right about it. I know Vassar came out and I think said that he's confident. Matt or Lewis is okay and everything like that, and that he came out and in support and all that stuff, but. Do you see any possibility that Lewis would come out and say, hey, let's just hang it up and then give it to whoever the rookie is or whatever?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if he'll go the Fernando Alonso route, but I think I think they've stolen a championship from him and he wants it back. And I think if that had not happened, if they
Yeah.
didn't blatantly break all the safety car rules to hand max the championship, I think he might have retired from Mercedes instead of coming to Ferrari. I think he's still chasing that. He's tied with Schumacher for most
Yeah.
championships ever, and in his head, he should not be tied with Schumacher. He should be ahead of him. And they stole that one from him, and I think that's the only reason he's still. I think he retires from Mercedes if that never happened. Not
Yeah.
that year, but when the next generation, like after last year,
Yeah.
versus coming to Ferrari, I think he probably retired. I think he's still trying to figure out a way through. If you want to go full, like put on two tinfoil hats, we're going to talk about this in a bit. George Russell has no, it's not signed. There's an open seat at Mercedes. Technically, does he go
Yeah.
back?
Yeah.
So,
He could go
well,
back. That's true.
we'll talk about George Russell in a minute. But also, just real quick on Leclerc, did they ever? So, just for, again, kind of a little bit of a recap. On the radio, he said, I knew this problem. I knew how to manage it. You guys should have listened to me. This wouldn't have happened. Now we're probably not going to finish on the podium, which they were right. He finished 20 seconds off the podium. But
Yeah.
then in the scrum afterwards, he said, I was wrong. It wasn't the issue I thought it was. It was something with the chassis. There's nothing we could do. But then I don't know if you saw George Russell's comments.
No, I
Did you
didn't
see what
see it.
George Russell said? So George
No.
Russell strongly implied that Ferrari was cheating,
Really?
and that the car was the ride height was illegal, and it was too low, and they were getting more grip because of that. And in the last pit stop, they raised the ride height because he said it was noticeably different when he passed him at the. And he said they had to raise it to be legal, so that when they got scrutineering after the race and they measured everything, it would be legal. So he basically, and then they said, "Well, he said it was just the chassis," and he said, "Well, what are they going to say?" So I'll pull the quote while you're reacting to that, but I was like, really?
Well, I mean, they did say that there was a rear suspension issue. That's what they were managing. You know, they said the team said to the on the radio, you know, we're dealing with a rear suspension damage that is causing you to lose about 3/10 or 4/10 a lap, whatever it may be. That's what they were saying was the issue was that, you know, if it is what they're saying. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, though, don't they test the cars after qualifying? Don't they inspect the cars after
Yeah,
qualifying because they have
I
to put the
don't know
stickers on them
exactly.
for
Yeah,
paint
but
filling?
but they might have been. um, there, Russell is implying that they are messing with the tire pressures. So
Okay.
he was saying they intentionally were running below like the allowable tire pressure on the first two sets, and on the third one they had to, which you're not allowed to mess with that, by the way. But
I mean,
here's the exchange. Here's the exchange. I found it, so I'm just gonna read this out. Um, um, he has suggested that that Leclerc's pace was hampered by increasing the tire pressure for his final stint. That's what he said. I saw how slow he was. I presumed something was not right. He's not going to tell you that they're close to being illegal. The only thing we can think of is they were running the car too low to the ground and had to increase the tire pressure for the last stint.
I mean,
Ferrari is, and then he pointed out that that Hamilton was disqualified for excessive plank wear at one race.
yeah,
Uh,
that was China, right?
it says in Canada, and then Russell, man, he didn't stop. They were using an engine mode that was making the engine slower at the end of the straight, which is where you have the most amount of plank wear. That's the only thing we can think of based upon the lap times and the engine mode they were running and stuff like that.
I don't know. It seems like a lot of if ands or buts, but I'm not sure that I think that the tires didn't work out for them. Maybe it was pressures, but you got to remember, like all of our cars, the cars that we drive around every day, the computers can tell you what the tire pressures are at based off of
Yeah.
sensors that are in them. If they were running illegal tire pressures, the FIA would have been able to tell.
Well,
Now,
I think there's a
I will
range,
say
right?
the FIA is saying that he is gonna have penalties, but I think that was for the movement that he had
Yeah, no, it was for hitting.
before.
It was for the double. It was the 2 laps in a row.
Yeah,
Um, that 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 he got penalized for. But I guess my point is, let's say they were doing what George Russell, accused them of, which is, raising the last end, putting more air in the tires to raise up the car, the ride height, avoid the plank wear, be legal. That still does not account for the pace.
yeah,
Like losing. Keep in mind, Leclerc came out of the pits in front of Piastri and Russell. They all did their second pit. He had a good 4 or 5 second delta to Piastri and further to Russell. Yeah, I mean he lost almost a minute to Piastri. Like
it's
that's
not a
not a
little
tire
bit.
pressure. That's not a tire pressure thing. So I think Russell was just sticking the needle in a little bit probably. There were probably multiple things going on.
For sure.
But yeah, the it was interesting to see him like straight up again. I was obviously upset about at Leclerc already
Yeah,
for the moves, which like you said, Leclerc was penalized for. But um,
we all,
yeah,
a lot of people like to say that the WWE is soap opera for men. I don't know. Formula One is kind of soap opera for
Formula
men
One's
as
right
well.
there, and there's cars and stuff. So
Exactly.
going to the drivers' championship, man, we are gonna have a fun sprint to the finish here.
Oh yeah.
Look at this. This is right where you want it. 9 points differential. That's a little bit more than a race win. As they head to Zandvoort in a month, Labor Day weekend is that race. So yeah, I mean it's a two. It's definitely a two-car race, and it's anyone's game. It is
For
anyone's
sure.
game, and I think, oh man, this is gonna be very interesting. Neither of these drivers have obviously been in this position before. There's gonna be all sorts of pressure on them to be clean. Like you said, this could come down to just who doesn't DNF, who doesn't make that big mistake that costs you enough points that you can't make it up. So this will be stressful and fun. And you know what, Evan? I know we both want Lando to win, but we can't lose, man. A McLaren driver is going to win this championship, and
This is true.
we're in good shape
How
here,
long do you
man.
think? I got a question to pose to you. How long do you think before Max Verstappen loses that third place position?
Oh, good question. His home race, you think it could happen?
Yeah, I
No,
mean,
I think it's going to take a couple races.
technically, it's within reach.
Yeah, I
He
think
what
that is. I
15
hadn't
points
even really
back.
noticed that, but you're right. George is going to overtake him by the end of the year for sure.
Yeah,
I think I'll give it 2 more races. I think 2 more races
two more
because
races.
I think I'm expecting the McLarens to continue to finish 1-2. So then there's not that many points you can make up in one race when like the
Yeah,
max you're getting is 15. So yeah, but I'll give it 2 more races because I think Verstappen has also given up.
yeah,
It's hard, and again, I keep going back to when Lewis was at McLaren. Um,
yeah,
you know, when that car, that one year he lost to Jensen Button when the car just wasn't good and he was just like kind of checked out. I feel like Max is, he's used to being at the front, and like when he got in that sprint race 2 weeks ago, and Oscar's in his sights, he's like, I can win this. You saw Max, but we saw this weekend was, I don't know why you pitted me. This crap's over. I'm just gonna parade around and not really give a shit. I'll
yeah,
finish behind the racing bull. I don't care. And we see that with a lot of champions when the stakes all of a sudden become, do you finish sixth or seventh? They don't care. So I think that's kind of where he's at. So, and meanwhile, George Russell is trying to, this is the highest he's ever going to finish in the standings. For like in his career so far.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so for him, this is all uncharted territory. He wants to beat Leclerc. He wants to finish third. You know, he's the number one driver in Mercedes, and so for him, this is new. For Max, this is like, I can't believe I'm back here.
Yeah,
So it's just very different. He's also got to change his number next year. He can't wear that one anymore.
can't wear that
You have
one
to go back
anymore.
to his other number. Now the
I don't even
constructors,
remember what his other number was. Dang, it's been that
yeah, what
long.
was it? Because he so man, I do kind of miss the old school the
Was he
numbering where
three?
I don't think he was. I thought Ricardo was 3. It was Ricardo 33.
Yeah,
I
Ricardo
gotta
was
Google.
no. He Max was 33.
Max was 33.
Max was 33.
I am confirming, but I believe you to be right.
Yeah,
Yes, he
I
was
think Max.
33. Yeah, he was
Dang,
33.
that's crazy that he's been one for so long now that we forgot what he was.
Well, I kind of
Was
miss the
Lewis
old days where they used to renumber every year.
did Lewis put the one on for a while?
No, you don't. You don't have to. So you have the
Yeah, I
op.
know you don't have to.
So yeah, no, he never did. I mean, he did when he won at McLaren, but he didn't. He
Oh,
didn't.
okay, okay.
He didn't when he didn't have to. Because back then it was still the whoever wins is one, and then their teammates two, and so on all the way through to
Yeah.
the grid. So you didn't. All the numbers changed every year, and then they went to the. You pick a number, and I think you get it for 5 years at that point. No one can use it after you stop, and then you can keep it.
No, actually, I just saw this. It's 2 years. You have to
It's
be
two
out for
years.
2 years. Yeah,
Okay.
you have to be out for 2 years. So somebody said the other day, um, I think it was Bierman has Sergeant's old number.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so
Um,
that's so now the only one that can the whoever wins can pick to be number one. Other than that, you're your
yeah,
number. So yeah, Lewis never chose to do that at Mercedes, but he did use it in McLaren.
yeah.
Except for the year he won the championship in McLaren, they were technically last from the previous year because of the Spygate. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why he was championship with I believe 23 on his car, even though
Something like that.
because McLaren got disqualified from the constructors and had to go last. But anyway, that's ancient history. This time, McLaren is going to be just fine in the constructors. This thing is
Out
boy,
of the
it's
park.
over. Almost 300 points, just short of 300 points.
It's insane.
And yeah, Ferrari continues to lead Mercedes, although the gap closed slightly this week, but not much. It's so hard to close the gap if McLaren finishes 1-2 because
Yeah,
that's where the big point gaps are, and then you end up like we said, obviously Russell beat Leclerc, and Antonelli finished in the last points paying spot, and Hamilton out of the points, but you're gonna make up like 4 points doing that. So it's just
yeah,
it's that's a pretty decent gap if the Ferraris continue if the Mercedes really don't win another race because Russell has won this year,
yeah.
then it's hard to make up even that 24-point gap. So we'll see. We'll see. And
Yeah.
then the bottom of this is still bunched, fans, still bunched behind Williams. We got Aston Martin, Sauber, Racing Bulls right on top of each other there.
Oh yeah. That's going to be the battle that we're going to be watching, like we talked about last week,
Yep.
for the rest of the year is to see who gets that 6, 7, 8 spots and how they play out because it's really fluid. I mean, obviously Aston Martin. What were they last week? I think Aston Martin was probably ninth last week
Yeah. No, they
or
jumped they
eighth.
jumped Sauber for sure. I don't
Yeah,
know. They might have been just ahead of Racing Bulls. I don't recall, but it was yeah, no, they moved up multiple spots, I think, if not. Yeah, so
so we're going to see that throughout the rest of the year, and with how Williams has been, really, I mean, Alex hasn't been super great all this past month or so. So we might even
yeah,
see them
but
start to
I
get
can't
close
believe
there.
we're role reversing here. But that car is, I think, maxed out. I
Yeah,
think they benefited from getting a handle on it more quickly in the beginning of the season. So, but they have not done the
they've
development with the
moved
rest
on.
of it. Yeah, and so they're just, I mean, because those are two good drivers that are stinking it up out there. It's just there's nothing in the car. Um,
That
Alonso's
might be that might be next year that car that we see come out and start to challenge, kind of like how McLaren's did this year, where maybe not as dominant as the McLaren's are this year, but they're going to come out, and really start to show the quality of those two drivers. I wouldn't be surprised to see Williams in the top three next year, top four, right up there with the Mercedes and the Ferraris and the Red Bulls even more. Because at the beginning of the year, that's what we were talking about. We were talking about them fighting with with Mercedes, with Red Bull, with Ferrari. They were, Albon. Wow, I couldn't get that out for a second there. Alex Albon was up there, fighting with him for most of the, or for the majority of, the what, first quarter of the year or something like that, and then they started to fall off later on. But I mean, I don't see that changing going into next year. I think that might actually accentuate even more going into next year. So, we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see what all of these. So yeah, like you said this last week too. So but the the teams that seem to be dropping off the pace are putting that development time into next year's cars. So what they come out of the lab with, will be interesting.
Oh yeah.
And all these teams are balancing, the monetary reward of finishing higher against the result of doing that, leading to less wind tunnel time. So it's like all a balance. It's an interesting to see how they're approaching it. I think pretty clearly Williams has stopped developing this car. I think they're probably pretty comfortable where they're sitting in the constructors, and I think they can hold that spot anyway. And they're putting development again. They have two drivers that they feel they can build around too, which you can't necessarily say that for some of the other teams down there. We're going to talk about the rookies in a bit. Before we do that, though, real quick, I just pulled up the race results because it's interesting how this thing has swung Lando's direction. Um, these are obviously in chronological order. There's more up top, but you can see there was a point where Piastri looked like he took control. Won 4 out of 5 races, and it looked like he was in control. And now it's been Lando, answering back.
What
And
is it
he
now,
has
5-6?
Lando's got the momentum. It is, I think it might be. Is it 6-6? No, you're right. 5-6. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Lando has won 3 out of the last 4. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
It has
he should
swung his direction.
he really could have been 4 of the last 4 because, I mean, how close was he at the end of the race in Spa? I mean, he was
Um,
right there,
he was
right?
closing. I think he finished like 3 seconds back. Yeah, he needed a few
Yeah.
more laps probably.
So I
I mean,
mean,
he's winning the championship right now if he didn't throw Canada away by running into the
yeah,
back of. So
for
that
sure.
George Russell win was an inflection point for Lando. But he's, for all the talk about him blowing poles, throwing things away, he has really, since the back half of May, seized control here and is getting the results that he needs. And if he continues on this trajectory, he's going to win the championship. So
Well, I
it's
mean,
he's kind of,
it
I
it's
think
really gonna
Oscar got a lot of took advantage of a lot of those mistakes Lando was making earlier, and he's not making them as much anymore, and it's putting pressure on
exactly.
Oscar now to actually have to do something versus just keep the car on the track and drive smart. He's got to still do that, but he's got to do it more quickly because Lando, as we've said all year and keeps proving, is quicker.
Yeah, yeah. No, I 100% agree with that. The only thing that we can say is is that Oscar is that consistent driver. Let's see how they come out of the summer break. Let's see, the mentalities that they bring or that they go into the summer break with. Whether it's Oscar going in there thinking, man, I should have won that race. I should have done, if he's going in with that negative mentality, he's going to come out, like a bat out of hell going into Zandvoort. And that's not a track, that you can really go super hard on. It's a difficult track, and we'll talk about this right before the that race. But that track can bite you in the rear if you really try to push it too hard and you don't drive that smooth race. And Lando dominated there last year. I mean, completely dominated that race last year. I remember watching that and saying, "Man, is it orange for Lando Norris and and the McLaren, or is it orange for Max Verstappen?" Because that place was crazy, and he dominated that track last year, and I think that he has the potential of doing that again. And then you got 4 out of the last 5 that he's won going into the final stretch of races, where Lando does still have the experience advantage over Oscar. You know, this is only Oscar's what, third year in Formula One.
Yeah,
You know, Lando's done this for a lot more years now. He, you know, this back half is where that experience comes into play. We like to say that a lot for other sports like football, basketball, and stuff like that. You know, veterans are the ones who get you through that last half of the year, that last, you know, part of whatever season it may be in. And you know, I can see Lando coming out and just, you know, not so much dominating, but just being more comfortable with, you know, getting through those dog days of you know, the August, September's, October, you know, October going into, you know, the end of the years or the end of the year, and really seeing if he can extend this out and keep on winning and keep on pushing, you know, because he has this opportunity, and this might be the only opportunity that they get, you know, with this new
yeah,
regulation
new car
series
coming
coming
in. Yeah,
out. This really might be the one, you know, opportunity that they get to be able to win this championship, and I hope, I'm excited. I'm going
yeah,
into this summer break. You know, this is one of the most exciting times of the year for me because you get to see, you know, these guys go at it with each other, and now they get a little bit of a break, so we get to see, you know, where their mentality is. Always watching the Drive to Survive. This is one of the funnest times to, you know, like this part of the season when they all go there. It's like you could see these guys come in and say, you know, oh, finally we get a little bit of a break, we get a little bit of a rest, but you can also see the ones who are in that fight, in, you know, for that battle for the championship. Their mentality is different from the other guys who are just like, oh, thank God. You know, they're like, all right, come on, let's keep on going, let's keep on pushing. You know, they want to keep it, they want to keep the momentum going, and I think that you're right. Lando has that momentum right now, and it's something that will hopefully help him going into the last part of the season.
yeah. And as Morgan said, for us McLaren fans, obviously, like I think we're both want Lando to win, but it doesn't get much better than it's bad. Which
Yeah, for
McLaren
sure.
is going to win?
Yep.
That was a great problem to have for us. Yeah, this is a special car, and I do wonder where this is going to rate. In the obviously right now it's the thick of the title, and everyone's like, which McLaren driver is going to win? As Morgan said, this car is going to go up there in the history books with the other great McLaren cars. And obviously, when you're in the moment, you don't necessarily think about that, but this is one of the more dominant cars in Formula One history. Um, and it's going to go up there with those great ones that Senna and Prost drove and lapped the field in. It's going up there with that. This is really a remarkable achievement,
Yeah.
given where this car. Again, we talked about this earlier this season. This was the car that the first time they rode it on the track, Lando had to pit after every lap so they could top the fluids off. This is the same generation that is now unbeatable. It's amazing, amazing.
It'll
So
be up there with the MP4-4, the
yeah,
MP, what was it? The MP.
the 4-4 is the one that everyone considers the greatest car. This will be right there with it. I feel.
Yeah, I mean, the that car, the '99 car, the Vodafone
Austin Organ.
car.
The
You know,
Vodafone ones, yeah, those are those
the
are those are fun talking. Yeah,
those were great cars, and you know the M23 from 1976. You know, the James Hunt car, that was an iconic McLaren. You know, the I think that this one has to go up there with them. You know, this one has to go up there with. Yeah, we all would like one.
you got some spirit change later on to get your Father's Day. Is you got a year to plan, so
I don't know.
go for it,
Maybe we
man.
could.
Come on, your dad deserves a nice gift. Just give him a
Yeah,
McLaren.
yeah. Funny enough, he's got the faster car out of the two of us right now, so he would be the one that would keep up with the McLarens better than I could. But to get back onto what we were saying, you know, this car I think would go up there with all of those other ones. You know, it's gonna be in that Hall of Fame that they have there at Woking. You know, and in that basically Star Wars set
Yeah,
of
yeah.
a factory that they have, which, you know, fact there, it was actually used in Star Wars.
Really, that I didn't know.
Yeah, Andor, in the show Andor, it was they
Oh,
used the
interesting.
Woking, the factory, as one of the sets in the show.
Yeah, when we get to the end of the season, we are McLaren fans. We got to do a little retrospective on the journey here. They haven't won the last year. Obviously, won the constructors for the first time since the '90s.
Yeah.
Um, and this year is going to be the first drivers' championship since Hamilton overtook Block on the last lap in Brazil in 2008. So
Yep.
this is some cool stuff. 17 years. That said, there were a couple of topics we wanted to talk about. I guess the first one we hinted at earlier. George Russell's not signed with Mercedes. Obviously, like Toto admitted he met with Max, and then I guess they dug into the details. Honestly, like they're all saying, "Oh no, it's just friendly, whatever." And Max like, "No, I was all," and he has since extended with Red Bull and said, "Oh no, I was always going to be back." Reading the tea leaves, it looks like they looked into the contract and there was no way to get out of it. Because all of a sudden, Toto's like, "Yeah, we're not bringing him in," and then Max has reaffirmed it. But with that said, George Russell's not under contract for next year and has not signed anything. They asked him about it after the race. He basically said, I'm not rushing into anything in the next few days because summer break is when a lot of this business gets done. That's why they're asking him about it. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, I've been with Mercedes a long time. There's no pressure for me. I plan to be here, but I'm also not going to rush into a decision and sign something just to get it done. And what do you think is going on there?
I just think that that's I hate to be the one to say you got to trust what they're saying in these situations, but I don't think there's much more to read into it than they're just kind of dragging their feet about it. The I don't think that they're worried about George going someplace else. We all know George Russell is a quality driver. I'm not going to say he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but he is a quality driver. And the problem is there's just not a lot of open seats right now. There's not a lot of other seats that are going to be coming open. I think that if there was a McLaren seat that was opening up next year or a Ferrari seat that was opening up next year, which we don't know, maybe if Lewis retires or something like that, you know, if something like that was opening up next year and they knew about it, they knew that somebody wasn't under contract that was going to retire or a rookie that just didn't look good or something like that was going to happen, I think that they would be quick to sign George Russell. I think that they know that there's nothing that's like that, so they're just like, okay, well, we can just drag this on as long as possible.
So you think the holdups on the Mercedes end?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's
I
Mercedes.
that
I
that was
think
one of the questions I
I
like when I asked what was
I
going
think
on.
it's
Yeah, that's an
more
interesting.
both. I think it's more kind of both. I just think that neither one of them they're just kind of at that point to where they're like, let's just race, man. Let's
Is
get
this
this
is this
done.
as simple as just money, or that you think that's because there's not like you said? Look, obviously I've been
These guys make so much
mildly
money.
critical of George Russell on this show over the
Yeah,
years. However, just a little bit, but I mean, there's no chance they're going to get a better driver than that. So I don't know what they're doing. He's clearly a number one at a major team, in my opinion. Like he's proven that he's
yeah,
able to handle that role. You got to pay the man and get it done. As far as I'm concerned, like you're not getting Max, you're not getting anyone. I mean, outside. Okay, let's say who would be even comparable. Like Max is obviously a better driver.
yeah,
Frankly, we don't know if Lewis is anymore. That's kind of it. I think Russell you could say is on par with Lando and Oscar and Leclerc. He's in that
yeah,
category. What are they doing? What are they waiting for? Like you, unless even if you think you're gonna get one of those guys, it's not an upgrade. The only upgrade was Max, and obviously like something didn't work there. Whatever it was, I think it was the contract itself. But like now that that's done, you gotta pay George's money, and I'm just looking at this. Like what here's what Russell said. He's talking about Toto Wolf has nothing to be worried about. I've got nothing to be worried about. Nothing is going to happen over the summer because I just want to have a rest and recharge and come back stronger for the second half of the year. There's no time pressure. Then he said a bunch of other stuff. Then he said, I've been waiting 12 months. I'm not going to rush it in the course of 2 weeks, so we'll sit down when the time is right.
yeah. See that to me sounds like somebody who knows that he's secure in the position that he's in. Isn't really worried about somebody else coming in and taking that position. The person that we all thought was gonna it might have a chance to take his position obviously isn't. He's staying with Red Bull, another couple of year or another year at least.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really where he's at. He's just like, let's just race, let's get our jobs done, and we'll talk about this later on. You know,
I don't know. It's
I
kind of
think
weird that like
he's
they're
more
not
worried
able
about
to.
winning races than he is about
Yeah, but
the
it
money
is
that
still a
he's
little bit
making.
weird that they're not able to just like hammer this thing out at this point. He's been there 5 years,
Yeah,
and it's he's been there this
and
whole
it's only
generation of cars. So it's kind
yeah.
of bizarre that they can't just. He doesn't have a better option to go to that we know of, unless you said like Ferrari opens up because Hamilton's just like this. Even if he doesn't retire, if he's like this didn't work, I'll go back to
Yeah, but if
Mercedes or
you're
something.
my question to you is, even if Ferrari opened up, would do you think that Ferrari would take George Russell with Leclerc? I
I
mean,
think they'd almost.
not without the last race, without that, without thinking that
Yeah,
they
I
almost
I think you'd almost
ran
have to.
into
I
each
think
other.
look again. Um,
You don't think that they would go with somebody young, somebody that they
I've
develop?
been very critical of George Russell. I thought he was an immature driver and kind of felt entitled. I think that his attitude has changed a lot. I think he's way too. I think any team other than McLaren, if George Russell's available, you got to jump on him. Period.
Wow.
Because he's like I mean he's that good, and I think McLaren has two drivers that you're like these guys are just as good, if not better. We're fine. Everyone else, yeah, Red Bull stick his ass in the second seat next to Max, let them go racing. I mean, this one's like these. They're I think any of the like as opposed to Yuki. Are you serious? Like get a bit like these other top teams. Like you could argue that Ferrari. I mean, Hamilton's a different case because he's coming. He's a legend, and so it's a little bit different. But on pace, like you take Russell over him right now,
Yeah.
and not that you're gonna, but they're not gonna fire Hamilton. He's Hamilton. But like if he quits, you gotta do it. I think Red Bull should be like, how much money do you want? I think they should go get him.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Yeah,
be the
it's a
best team?
possibility.
Do you want to win constructors? You need to match McLaren's drivers.
Yeah.
You cannot do that right now.
Yeah.
So I think he's I don't but I think he's gonna go back to Mercedes. I'm not saying that those are things that are gonna happen, but I think he's got a lot more options than Mercedes does right now because there is the number 2 seat open at Red Bull, which would become a number one seat if he takes it. Like they'll let him fight with Max because frankly Max has lost his support structure there. The guys that were protecting him are no longer on that team. And I could see, the new leadership being like, hey, George Russell can be our guy. Max is Christian Horner's guy.
Yeah.
And so I think if he were to go there, he'd at least be given the opportunity, which some of these other drivers have not been, to fight Max. Now Max is again top 5 driver of all time, so it's not like it's gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna walk in there and blow Max away. But he does have options out there that looking at looking at Mercedes, if he were not to be there, like I don't know who they put it. You got Antonelli coming off his rookie year, and then what? That is a pretty big disaster for Mercedes, which I'm surprised they're not like committing the money and the resources. By resources, I mean like we're not going to screw around with you again. I'm sure some of this is a respect thing for him. They were clearly flirting with Max, trying to get him in there to replace him. So I think he's probably thinking, hey, you got to show me some respect and like commit to me probably long term, not just financially, but in terms of team dynamic power. There's all these things in the contracts about like negotiating power and who gets in charge of what, who gets to dictate what. That like Max has all that stuff in his contract, which is one of the reasons
Yeah.
he had out clauses that they thought they could trigger. I mean, I'm sure there's hold up in the fine print too, but at this point, Mercedes kind of just gonna be like, whatever you want, George, because him leaving is a disaster for them, and he'll get a drive somewhere. People
Well,
rip contracts up.
while you were talking about that, I was thinking about where would be the only enticing place, and I think right now the most enticing place if he does leave Mercedes would probably, have to be Stake. I mean, that's the Audi Works team as of next year, and they've looked pretty decent the last few races.
Yeah, we'll talk about Bortoletto though, and potentially him because that's who I think Hulkenberg's got a longer term deal there. So
Does Hulkenberg have a longer term deal there?
yeah, no, he's signed through the beginning of the Audi project. That's what they wanted him for. There is also the Cadillac team.
Yeah,
I didn't even see Jeff's
that is
comment,
true.
but
That is
no, but I mean,
true.
no, but more seriously, I think if he was going to make a power play, it'd be to leverage the Red Bull open seat. Red Bull's
Yeah.
got unlimited money; they'll pay him. And that does not count on the cost cap driver salaries, so they can pay whatever they want. And I think he can probably leverage that because they have got to be sick of. And we didn't even mention Yuki on this because he wasn't even a factor, but like
He's not
that.
mentionable.
Yeah, and so I think they've just got to be sick of that second car being worthless. And as much as like that car is not up to speed this year, they can get another good driver and have them compete with Max. And right now they haven't done that. So I think if George was going to try and leave, I think that's a spot that he could try to leverage. And say, hey, that's another championship winning car. They want me. I think it's all a negotiating ploy because I'm sure, again, I think he wants more power and control within the team. Especially given that they tried to backdoor Max and like go behind his back. I think at this point, it's like, you got to show me some respect and give me some power so that crap doesn't happen
Toto
again.
doesn't give that up.
Yeah, no, I know. And I think that's probably why they're butting heads, but I think they'll eventually work it out. Speaking of the Red Bull, though, okay, so we spent a lot of shows this year talking about how good or bad is this car, because the second driver is always like barely in the points or not at all, and Max is in the top 5. Max has now fallen to the back half of the top 10. It's his second struggle race in a row after he won the sprint race in Belgium. We're like, hey, he still got it, and he still has it, but the car doesn't. So how bad, and this was news between the last 2 races, but Max, like we obviously part of the George Russell discussion talked about, he did agree to stay with Red Bull past this season because that was obviously on Mercedes, all that stuff. What did he sign up for? What is with this car? Why is it so bad? They don't have Adrian Newey. Like, there's no reason for it to be this bad.
It's not even just Adrian Newey. It's the
whole
people
yeah.
that they've lost in total. I you know me. I'm the one that has came out and said on this show many times that car started making a downwards turn after Adrian Newey left the team. We all know this, but it's not just Adrian Newey that has left the team. I mean, Christian Horner's gone now. I forget the guy's name, but the guy who's in charge of the developing the car, McLaren, was a Red Bull guy for a long time. There's a lot of guys that are on other teams now that were a part of that Red Bull, dominant team 2-3 years ago that got that car to where it was and made it such a force within Formula One. All those people are gone, and I'm sorry, if you're not developing these cars, you're going backwards. Every single time you need to do, there needs to be a develop. Every single week, there needs to be some type of development on the car, whether it's specifically to whatever track you're going to, or things that you think you can improve to just make the pace better overall. There's always something that can be upgraded, fixed, changed, to tweaked to make these cars faster. And they just don't have the people in place right now at Red Bull to do it. Now, saying that, they have made this change now to Larmekius. They have changed the structure of how the team is going to be moving forward, with the power dynamic of the new team principal, new CEO, all of these things. Will that help this situation? You're not going to be able to tell that until next year at least. I can tell you right now, Max Verstappen was winning races earlier this year with Christian Horner as the team principal. 2 races into the new team principal CEO, or no, 1 race into it, right? Because Christian Horner was let go after Spa, right? Or was it?
It was before. Spa? It was before. It was
so 2 races.
Yeah.
So 2 races, and his average finish now was what, 7th?
Yeah. No, he's
so
he's fallen off pretty. Yeah, the car's not. That's why I asked the question, because he's obviously signed up for another year. They don't have a second driver for next year.
Yeah.
And so what is the plan here? Like you said, that if you're not developing, you're falling behind. Is definitely that. I think we're seeing with Williams too. But what's the path forward here? They've got the best driver on the grid. They've lost their entire championship apparatus other than him. They don't have a number 2 driver. What is the
I think
long
that
term prospects of this team that now, again, they have 2 teams on the grid, which is illegal, but they're allowed to do it for whatever reason. So like this is a dicey situation for Max to be sitting in, and yeah, that's why it's the I don't do you think how optimistic or pessimistic are you for next year?
I mean, you gotta kind of be pessimistic to a point. I mean, the only optimism in there is that they are changing complete formulas. The whole car is changing for next year, so really nobody knows where anybody's gonna be at. We could come out here next year and a Cadillac could be the, number one car in preseason testing. Because they've just only been developing this car. You could come out here and see the Red Bulls be the fastest car on the track just because of the fact that they have that Ford powertrain, in the back of that car, and that thing is dominant and completely smacks everybody else up and down the field. You can see any of these things happen. So that's where I think the optimism is in the situation is that you don't know what's going to happen next year. You have such a giant variable of a completely new regulation set that at this point I wouldn't be surprised if they brought Max in and said, hey, listen, this car next year is looking good for us. We're positive, or we're trending in the positive direction when it comes to what we see this car doing. Here, test it in the wind tunnel, see how you feel with it in there, or not in the wind tunnel, in the simulator, and see how you feel with
Well,
it in
Max will
there.
be in the simulator anyway, if you know anything about Max.
Oh yeah,
So
he loves the simulators. So put him in the simulator, let him see how it drives in there. He's happy with it in there. Say, listen, that's what we're thinking for next year. This year, it's gone.
screwed,
Both
yes.
driver,
And he knows
it's
that. He knows that.
and he knows that. And I think that you did see that. You saw that with how he was with Kimi. When he wrecked with Kimi, you saw that with a lot of these situations that he's coming out now and he's just like, okay, yep, cool. I'm Max Verstappen and it's whatever. He's not that cutthroat. I'm gonna step on you and into the I'm gonna curb stomp you, to get a win, because he just knows that this car isn't there right now, and I think that he wants to move on to next year, get it over with, and then make his decision from there. I think he'll be there next year with Red Bull, and then he'll go, who's the best car?
Yep.
You know,
Probably, yeah.
if
No,
Red,
that makes sense.
if Red Bull was the best car next year and he wins the championship, cool, resign. Mercedes, cool, sign. McLaren, cool, sign.
McLaren might be hard to get into. That's another, that might be an off season topic. How long this partnership lasts, because they both want to be the number one, and you can do
Well,
that
that's what the
for
question's going to
you
be.
can do this for only so long. So, but then if Max comes in, they're all the number 2. So like, I don't be interesting. That is a problem for another day for McLaren as they coast to the constructors, as well as definitely securing the drivers. Just don't know which of the drivers. So the last thing I want to talk before we kind of wrap up here in this summer break. So there have been an extraordinary number of, I'll say, rookies this year. A couple of them had a little bit of racing experience. But I'm just going to read off the names. We're going to discuss like what we've thought of the rookies so far. So there's our old friend Jack Doohan, Franco Colapinto, Ollie Behrman, Gabriel Bortoleto, Kimi Antonelli, Isaac Hajar, and Liam Lawson are all technically rookies. I know Behrman and Colapinto and Lawson had seat time in previous years. That's a lot of, obviously it's 7 cars because Doohan was replaced by Colapinto, and Morgan's talking about how Lawson's doing pretty well now. He's had a hell of a trajectory this year from
Yeah.
second Red Bull driver to fired from that team to, as we said earlier, finishing the first part of the year, beating both the Red Bulls. So I guess, what are your thoughts on this, like on this rookie class? Because I believe 2 years ago there were no driver changes one year. There was like one driver change another, and then this year a lot of upheaval and a lot of rookies. What are your thoughts on the rookie class? Who stood out? Who do you think? This is a tough one. Will still be in F1 next year?
I'm gonna say I would think Hajar is going to be there next year. I think Bortoletto is going to be there next year. I think obviously Kimi is going to be there next year. Other than them, I think Liam Lawson is a possibility. I'm not going to say a certainty. I think he's where that list of names start to kind of fade off to the more probably not going to be in Formula One
Yeah.
side of things, but um, I think that's kind of where it lies. I think you're going to see McLaren's going to be Oscar and Lando again next year. I think you could see Red Bull being Yuki, possibly maybe Hajar, with Max. Mercedes is going to be Kimi and George most likely. As you start to go down the list of them, you can start to see the teams that are really gonna be there. Morgan said Alonso is definitely gonna be there. So does Stroll finally leave that seat and leave it open to somebody? You know,
I mean,
Drogovic, maybe that might be another rookie that comes in. For next year, we'll see how that works out because that is kind of their guy. Going into the future there, but I mean, overall, I think there'll probably be a similar amount of or the ones who are rookies this year. I don't see much of them moving out because there's not a lot of there's some good drivers that are in Formula Two right now. What's the kid's name from the Red Bull one that they keep on talking about? The Austrian kid, or I think he not Austrian. He's like something. The one that they tried to bend the rules to get him into.
I
What
don't.
was the
I,
kid's name?
no, this is your thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the kid's name. But he's a Red Bull junior, and they were trying to get him to come up and be in Formula One or race for Racing Bulls this year. But they couldn't get him in because he's too young. I just had the name in my head.
Is he German? Is it Oliver Goff?
No, hang on.
Their
I gotta look
Red
it up.
Bulls Junior Formula One team has a Spaniard, Pepe Marti, Oliver Goat, the German, and then a British guy, Arvid Lindblad.
That's him,
This is
Lindblad.
Lindblad.
Yeah, Arvin Lindblad. So he's British. So his name sounds German, but Arvin Lindblad. That's who they were trying to get to go into the Racing Bulls earlier this year, but he either doesn't have enough super license points or he's too young or something like that. I know he's really young, but either way, so I could see maybe him being in that second Red Bull seat, if not in one of the Racing Bull seats for sure. The problem is like right now. So let's transition to who's doing good out of those rookies. Like man, it's been such a roller coaster when it comes to them because almost every single rookie this year has had really good highs and really bad lows. I mean, look at Kimi. Kimi, in the beginning of the year, we all were praising, saying how amazing he was. And then he had a few weeks there where he just died out. Isaac Hadjar, first race of the year, spun on the formation lap. We all thought
Oh my god,
he
I
was a
forgot that.
joke.
Jeez, that was so long ago. That's only a half
Spun
season ago. All the rookies like
spun on the
messed up the
formation lap.
first lap, or like they put all these kids out there and don't know how to drive. And
Yep, and he's sitting there and crying on the freaking on the
yeah,
TV. Everybody felt so bad, and then he came out after that like a bat out of hell and started doing amazing. And I mean there's shows of us talking about it, and I'm saying how great he was and how consistent he was driving, and really he's still pretty much been consistently in that top 8 to 12 to 14 range, which is great for a rookie, especially a rookie in a second team.
yeah,
You know, then you have Bortoletto. Bortoletto didn't have the greatest start to the year, but man, he's been coming on strong as of lately. Had a few good races there. Silverstone, he looked good. Spa, he looked decent. This past race, he looked really good. So you got Fernando Alonso coming out saying that he's like the best rookie that he's ever seen in Formula One in since he's been out there. A quote
yeah.
from
Well,
Fernando Alonso saying that.
well, he's full of crap. But this
Well,
is
we know
this is
this.
this is this is
It's
this is
his
long
guy.
term beef. Well, he also shared McLaren with a rookie that he did not get along with at the time that should have won the drivers' championship as a rookie if Alonso had intentionally screwed him. So
Yep.
that's
But
yeah.
either way, he's
He had
still
a
coming
front
out
row seat to
saying
that one.
he's still coming out,
Yeah, no,
and
actually, I do.
he is his guy.
Yeah, no, I do agree that Bortoleto, I think, has the more out of these drivers. Although Kimi is close, has the most potential, I think, to be a future champion.
Really?
Yeah, because I think he's got something in him that's like. Because I look at so here's a good example. Morgan mentioned Liam Lawson earlier. He is right on that Albon Gasly trajectory
Yeah.
of not good enough to be in the top teams, but a very good F1 driver that's going to probably be here for a long time. And just kind of like, oh yeah, he's making up the midfield. He's in the midfield for like a decade.
Yeah.
That's what we've seen Albon and Gasly. They're still there. Their seats are secure. No one questions whether they're a good F1 driver. It's hard to remember. They went to Red Bull, failed miserably, fired midseason, and be like, their career's over. They're dead. They're just
Yeah.
going to play out the string in Racing Bulls. At the time it was AlphaTauri. And instead, they've resurrected their careers and they're really good midfield drivers, and I think that's like where Lawson ends up. But I think Antonelli and Bortoleto were ones that, okay, I could see them winning races consistently and being like another level. Maybe Hajar, he's been
I was
so
gonna
up and
say,
down.
I think
I think
Hajar is in that conversation
potentially,
too.
I think he's got a. It's so hard. I mean that it's hard to tell because that car is the junior car. But we did see, we have seen Max Vettel win in that car. We saw Gasly win in that car. um, so I don't know. I think definitely Colapinto's not going to be here next year,
No.
and obviously Duhan was already fired. But that car is so awful that
Yeah.
I don't know that that's fair,
That
but
team
that's where
should that team shouldn't be there next year.
yeah. What do you think? So that leaves us with I honestly don't know what to think of Bierman. We talked about this a few races ago, but like we don't see him, we don't hear him. He's just kind of there. Like we don't see a lot of the Haas's, but you do. I feel like you see and hear from Ocon more than Bierman. What is? I
I
can't
think
even tell if he's good or not. He's not making any mistakes. He's not doing anything great either. He's just kind of circling the track and which
I think
I don't know.
Bierman is the replacement for Lewis. That's my prediction. I think
Oh,
Bierman is.
I think
I think Bierman is the eventual gonna put in the Red Bull, or not in the Red Bull, in the Ferrari after Lewis leaves. I think that he knows that. I think that the team knows that. I think Haas knows that. I think all of them understand that he
do you
is
think he's
just
good
at
enough for
Haas level.
Ferrari?
I do. I think he's good enough for
I haven't
Ferrari.
seen anything to show me that he's a Ferrari level driver.
I mean, don't you remember when he drove for them? What was it,
Yeah, he
last
finished
year?
like in the top 10. He didn't finish in the top 5.
Okay, but top 10 as a rookie coming in
Okay, but again, like
for a
that's not
weekend
the
with no
standard.
testing,
You're talking about a team that's Leclerc and Hamilton right now, and fired signs to get Hamilton in there. I haven't seen
I,
anything.
I understand that, and like I
And
said,
here's the
I
other
think that
wrinkle.
they're
Here's the other wrinkle I'll throw in there for your theory.
what?
I think that is the idea they're grooming him for. That's why he's stashed in Haas.
Yep.
However, I haven't seen anything that would obviously Hamilton. I think we all agree is probably still going to be a Ferrari next year. Like I don't, so it's not anything
Uh,
like for next year. But I mean, how do they not, when that seat opens up, give Antonelli a blank check? They got to get the Italian guy back. I
because he's
mean,
never leaving Toto. Have you seen how
I don't think it matters. It's
The
Ferrari.
greatest Formula One meme I've seen all year has been the comparison between Kimi Antonelli and Toto Wolff and Tony Stark and Spider Man and Peter Parker. I love that meme. It's
Yeah,
so
well,
hilarious
Tony
because it's
Stark
like
ends
they
up
look.
dead, and spoiler alert, but and then you got to move on. So
Yeah,
I can't imagine they don't just, hey, we got to get the
I mean
Italian guy in Ferrari.
they're never gonna do it.
I mean, they
The
had
the
Vettel speaking broken Italian just to be more Italian. Like, how are
listen. When was the last time they had? When was the last time Ferrari had an Italian driver that was successful?
successful? I was about to say, was it? I mean, when's the last time they had a Italian driver? Appears at Luca Bador.
Uh,
when he
maybe.
moonlighted when they had
Yeah.
was that it?
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't. I mean, when's the last time Ferrari was successful?
I mean, that's true.
Schumacher, and
No,
before him, like never.
no. When they had not Alonso.
Alonso
When
didn't
they
win
had
anything. He almost did. That was the one where Vitaly Petrov held him up in the last race, and Vettel won his first
Vettel.
title.
Vettel was
He
their
didn't
last
win though.
championship.
He didn't win. Oh yeah, Kimi
Oh,
won. Kimi won one.
oh yeah.
2007, Kimi won. That was the one where Alonso stopped in the pits and ruined Hamilton's qualifying one of the races and cost him the
Yeah.
championship. Um, the rookie Hamilton that apparently Alonso was completely unaware of when he was talking about Bortoletto. But anyway, the don't come at my guy, man.
No, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think they have to at some point go for him. And how long do you
I
think
know.
Toto's going to stick around this sport?
Oh, he'll be there until the day he dies.
I think he'll eventually
To,
just walk off into the sunset. I don't know how much
Toto
longer.
Toto's gonna make a T100 version of himself and continue to run this team as the Terminator, as the Totonator.
I don't know. We'll see. I
I mean,
don't. I don't.
I want to see a picture of him next to Arnold Schwarzenegger because I think that they are brothers.
That's funny.
I mean, they're
Anyway,
to me they're
and
almost identical.
I mean, they're Austrian. They got that going for them. But
Tell him to get in the chopper. Kimmy, get in the chopper. But we've gone off on a tangent now, talking about the Toto Wolf. But I don't see Ferrari doing it. I don't see Ferrari going that far into it. I don't know. I see them getting Bierman, having him there with Leclerc, let Leclerc be the number one until Leclerc decides that he wants to leave to go someplace else, and then Bierman will be their number one, and hopefully by that time he'll be successful. Leclerc wasn't successful to even the point to where he's at now until he got with Ferrari when he was with what was it? It
he was
was
with
Sauber.
Alfa Romeo at the time. Yeah,
Yeah, so Sauber Alfa Romeo, when he was with them, he was just okay. I mean, could Bortoletto be that same type of driver? He's with Sauber now. Could he go to Ferrari? I mean, Bortoletto, is he Italian?
he's Brazilian.
Oh, he's Brazilian. Okay,
He is
so
Brazilian. It's about time we had. I will say, shout out to the Brazilians. It's about time we had another. It's been a bit since we've had a quality Brazilian driver. So
this is true.
because Massa was. I mean, he didn't win the championship, but he was good. Barrichello obviously had Senna. It's been a
Bruno
bit
Senna.
since the. Yeah, well, let's not.
Yeah,
If we're
we
gonna
said
go there, we
we
go
said quality
quality.
drivers.
Yeah, him and PK Junior did not do the
Oh,
names well.
Nelson PK Jr.
I mean, let's say he crash landed his career, and
Nelson PK Jr. Less successful than his sister.
she's the one who's married to Max or dating Max or whatever. Is that what we're talking?
Uh huh. She's the one that had the kid with Kvyat, and then Max Verstappen took Kvyat's seat from Red Bull, and then took his woman and his kid. Yep, that's true. That's true.
No comment on that. Max has plenty of money, so he'll be fine. Anyway,
Exactly.
that's a great way to end the first half of the season. So
Talk
little
about
summer break for the drivers. We're gonna go on a little bit of a break, but not much because we got to preview the next race, so we don't get the full 4 weeks off. So we'll definitely be back to do that. I've already gotten a preview of Evan. Evan. Oh, and Morgan's here too. Shout out to Morgan for designing the car for our new feature. We debuted last week. Little clunky, it was last minute, but Evan got us through it, and it was a cool feature. And he
wait.
has
Are
he
you?
has he has raised our game now. I'm going to play this next episode, not now. We're not
I was gonna
previewing
say,
that.
Are you able to show the car?
Let me see. I gotta pull the video down and see what
Well,
I
I
can.
mean, from the WhatsApp that I sent you of just the car.
Let's run through this lap of Sam. Hold on, it's playing out. Yeah, no, I gotta like download the video and I can do it quick.
I was gonna say, how about just the picture of the car that I sent you
Oh,
earlier?
I thought you had oh, I forgot you did that. Yeah, here we go. Let me see if
So debuting on Hitting the Apex, designed by Morgan Allen Soanes.
wow, you middle named you.
Yep, I
All
middle
right,
named him for this one.
there it is. That is
The Hitting the Apex SF25.
look at that beauty.
5 Reasons Sports sponsoring.
Yes.
And you can't see it in this picture, but on the rear wing there is a surprise that when you come
Yeah.
in 3 weeks to see the race, there will be a surprise on that rear wing for everybody else to see.
Yep, definitely. That is a
Shout out
cool.
shout out to Morgan for making that for us.
That was really cool. And then I will shout out Morgan, and I will shout out my co-host here. Really cool feature idea, and I've seen the finished product for Zanvor, and it is really cool. You want to be here in a couple of weeks when we do that preview, and Evan takes you on a lap around Zanfort, which is a fun track, like you said earlier. A lot of turning angles you can take into some of those corners. It'll be a fun race. We'll see if Lando can continue to chase Oscar down, or if Oscar restores a little order here. Evan, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. Enjoy the little gap here. You know, back in the day there were 10 races in a season. We still have 10 left, so
Yeah.
a lot of racing to go.
Luckily, there's a little bit of football in between, so we'll be able to watch that. So we won't be too bored on Sundays.
Well, actually, so Zandvoort starts that race is in the morning. That night is Miami Notre Dame at Hard Rock, so that's going to be a day.
That's gonna be a great day.
That's going to be a great day. Beat Notre Dame, go Lando, win this championship. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Evan, thanks for joining me. Extended show today. We had some good topic though. All right, we'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Thanks for watching. Evan, enjoy the summer break.
All right, boss. You too.